Hi, this is very interesting. I am doing this not with the microphone that I have on my computer, with the headphones that I have, and I'm just basically recording this just in a very spacious area. So if you hear me kind of have this very echoey feel, or just like a reverb type of effect on my voice, that's probably why. So I just want to let you know that. I'm sorry. I'm kind of like getting hiccups for some reason. I don't know. But anyways, this is very interesting. I don't do this a lot, and I don't even think I've done this ever. This is probably the first time I'm doing something like this at all. So, hello everyone. This is Ryan here, and I am doing an update because I feel like I should tell everyone that at least watches this channel or comes up to this channel what's been happening over the past couple of months. So basically, first off, I'm just going to say this. Finished my first year of college. Went pretty well. Definitely had some ups and also had some downs. Definitely learned some stuff, and I'm getting ready for the next semester with the next year. And I'm also going to have to start making a portfolio for my major, and probably might be deciding whether or not the major I want to do is actually the one I actually want to do, because I'm kind of leaning into one type of major, but then the other major that was there and open is kind of looking very interesting and also would help better in the field I want to go into. But that's more specific, and I'm not going to go into that really too much. All I can just say is that life in the school area has been pretty great, solid, no issues whatsoever, I could say. So with that said, I want to talk about some of the changes that I've experienced over those couple of months in school, and also just more recently after coming out of college and just experiencing stuff on my own. So I'm going to talk about that now. So basically, when I entered into college, I was a man who basically believed in objectivity. I really thought that there was just like kind of like one specific route of writing, or just that there was one specific route of telling a story, and that like basically if a story didn't execute something in this proper way or in that proper way, if the story just didn't do things according to a set of guidelines of what needed to be done, then the story was automatically bad and everything else was bad. And I had been doing that for a little long while. I was even in a group where that was like basically like one of the biggest things, and I was kind of like agreeing with that group and kind of like going along with that group. I could definitely say now that I left that group, but I've also found great friends from it, like great selective friends from it that I really have gotten used to being around with, and I feel like are just really cool, and just I can feel trusted with my thoughts on stuff. So yeah, basically back then when I was doing that whole objectivity stuff, and even me trying to make videos about it, or even me trying to use it in a very big grand scheme of things, it just really didn't work. And I just couldn't find a way. And also just looking back at it, I was not in the best state. Basically, I learned more recently with certain events that I'm going to explain that objectivity is bullshit, honestly. The whole thing about like, oh, you can only go with one way of writing, or that basically you have to say that you enjoy something but it's bad. Like, of course, that can still be done in just like enjoying things and like the subjectivity stances of just enjoying media. That's like for sure a thing that you can definitely do, like saying, yeah, there's a bad movie, but I enjoy it, so what? Like, you can still definitely say that, but you also do kind of understand, like, moralistically, if a movie is doing something bad, that it's like, yeah, you can't just like enjoy that or just like support that or anything like that. So that's like kind of like getting out of hand. Basically, objectivity in itself, I just really don't agree with anymore. I think it just very much more so hinders your enjoyment of things, or just like how you're supposed to enjoy the form of media that is happening and its medium. You're not like basically allowed to say that that this was interesting, or that there could have this interpretation, or that this could be like reflecting this like sort of belief system, or just like all these different things, because you know you have to follow this format. Does it follow the rubric? Does it follow all this? And it makes you very pessimistic. Also makes you very nihilistic and cynical. And I just more recently have just found that to really be not helpful. And like even looking back at my past behavior and just like past thoughts on things, it just really didn't work that way. It just didn't really work, and I found myself to just be very negative most of the time. And even if I was just like trying to enjoy things with like family, or even just trying to enjoy things with like friends or such, or even like outside of like the group that I'm like in, like this is what I mean, like just friends that are outside of that group, I felt like I was very controlled, or just like I felt not controlled. I would say I felt like I was too limited on like I was limiting myself onto what I could enjoy, and it just really felt like very negative, and it just really didn't do much for me at all. And it even just like led me to just like be like a like just not the best person, of course. And I'm going to get into that real soon, but yeah. Basically, objectivity can just suck it. I don't see the benefits of it. It just makes you very nihilistic. It makes you very cynical. It just doesn't really do you any favors. Like, if you have an interpretation, if you just enjoy something, that's cool. And if you're able to understand, like, morally what's wrong in a situation that's being shown, or morally what's right and all that stuff, then, yeah, you're pretty much good. And it's just, also, I'll even say that, like, with the objective standpoint, it just really reflects awful on you, because it's like you're just putting that like cynical behavior on like other people, and you're trying to tell them, hey, you're supposed to not enjoy this, you're supposed to hate it, you're supposed to be like this. And that's just very controlling on other people, and like saying that to like others is just very, very pessimistic, like I said. So with that said, with the objectivity stance, what I meant by how it affected my personality, that's probably the big part of this update. So this is the bigger part and what I really wanted to say. Basically, I'm going to just like say that originally, if many of you even remember those videos, I just took them down because it's like I just didn't agree with them anymore, and it just really served no purpose than just me being an idiot and just being very pessimistic. I used to think that the show The Owl House was bad. And that was not always the case, but I'll get into that. I thought it was really bad because I thought recent elements were being done poorly, and that things in the past were also being done poorly as well, but it was being sugarcoated by the viewpoints of using experiences like LGBTQ stuff, or like ADHD and all this different stuff. I was basically saying and thinking that the showrunners and the show writers were using that in a way to hide like inherent and inconsistent like flaws that were internally structured into the show. And I just look at that now, and I just really don't agree with that anymore. It just really doesn't vibe with me anymore, and I also just really see why I was like very wrong. And here's what I mean. All that changed of like me hating the Owl House or saying the Owl House was really bad was because of the finale. I remember watching the finale, getting ready to see it. I'm like, oh, this finale is going to be terrible. I even have like a group of friends. Like, I'll get more into that later, because these group of friends are very particularly different than the ones I was talking about earlier. I was just like preparing to watch the finale and think that was going to be awful. And I was watching it, and I was just seeing how things were going along. And I was starting to realize that I was being engaged with the show. I was being engaged with this final episode. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. I wanted to see what was going to happen next. And when things were happening, I felt an exhilaration, because I was seeing all this stuff that was being put together and actually being used in a very interesting way, because I just was being opened up to like, wait a minute, this is actually very fun. This is actually enjoyable. I'm actually having a fun time. And when the final credits of the show started to appear up, I was starting to feel happy, and I was starting to get emotional. And the quinceañera scene, I was smiling, and I was even tearing up a little bit, because I was just enjoying what was happening, and just like seeing how things were coming to an end, you could say. And when it finally ended, I realized I couldn't hate the show, because this is where it gets interesting. I couldn't hate the show because it helped me. In 2020, in July of 2020, I had recently finished the show She-Ra. Now, She-Ra is a different story. I think that show hasn't aged particularly well with certain things, but that's another time. Probably not another time, just my own opinions. Basically, I used to like most of the aspects in She-Ra. Then I look back at it, and there are certain aspects that I just don't think are very well done now, especially with Cachadora and how things were done with Catra. But yeah, to each their own. Like, people who think that Catra's stuff was done and Cachadora was done well, that's what you think. You can think that. I don't necessarily agree, but I'm not going to say you're wrong for it. I'm not going to be like that person anymore. But anyways, in July of 2020, I had come out of Cachadora and She-Ra. I had finished She-Ra, and it was a very impactful show to me because back in middle school and high school, in early high school and late middle school, I wanted to tell a story, and I never was like able to figure out like what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it. I always felt unmotivated here and there, and things like the movie Akira, which just showed me that I really wanted to do animation. Avatar: The Last Airbender, that really showed me that I wanted to do storytelling. And She-Ra, where it's just like I really do like serialized or just like TV shows and just seeing television animation and just seeing how animation itself can impact many lives and many people. I was like starting like be like I was starting to be impacted by this stuff, and I was like starting to like realize I really wanted to be a storyteller and like something in animation, but I just didn't know, it didn't fully set in yet. And then I saw in July a video titled All Lumity Moments in Season 1A of the Ahas. I watched those moments, and it interested me because also at the same time, this was the first time I was being exposed to anything LGBTQ related, because in middle school and even in elementary school, I had no idea what any of that was. I had no idea that that women could love women, that men could love men. I was raised in a very religious background. They never really talked about anything like that. And basically, when I was in middle school, my friend showed me a clip called Korosami, and this was back in 2018. I didn't know what Korosami was. All I knew that was like Legend of Korra, and I was thinking of looking at that because I had just seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I was like, oh, I actually kind of like want to see Legend of Korra now. And my friend showed me like one of the final clips, and it was with Korosami, and I was like, what's Korosami? And it's like, oh, it's a ship between these two women. And I was just like, wait a minute, two women? And that's when I was like starting to get exposed to LGBTQ stuff, because that's when I realized that Korra was bisexual, Asami was bisexual as well, possibly. Korra, like, Asami is bisexual. My bad. My bad about that. But just like seeing how Korra and Asami were interacting with each other, I just never had seen anything like that before. But it didn't really like leave an impact on me. And then when I saw She-Ra, that's when everything changed, and I was like, oh, this is very interesting. This is very new to me, and I was like, this is a very interesting like thing that I've just never heard of, and I want to get like more of this content because, like, sorry, it was just that queer love was just the exact thing of just love itself. Like, as a man can love a woman can love a woman, and a man can love a man, and I just had never really had seen something like that before, and I just wanted to see more of this stuff done in a very positive light, and I just wanted to just see more of this because I knew that was negatively portrayed in the past after looking into videos after seeing She-Ra of how LGBTQ relationships weren't always put in the best spotlight in like past movies or past TV shows, and I just wanted to see that positive representation, and Lumity, Lucent Amity, was like one of those things. And I was just hoping that it was going to happen. And I got into the show watching the first episode in like late July. I think it was July 28th of 2020. But yeah, I started watching the show, and it was a bit after the episode the first day had come out. I had seen clippets of the first day, but basically I had just like watched the show on my own, and I loved it. I came for Lumity and I stayed for the rest of it because everything else was just it was so charming. It was so cool to see this new vibrant world. It like magical, like mystical, everything. It was just so interesting to me at the time, and I just like stayed for that. And basically from there, when the episodes Really Small Problems and Understanding Willow had come out, that's when I had realized that the show really did mean a lot to me, and I was just in love with it. And even Grom episode, like that, I will say that when I watched the Grom episode, I did feel like, oh, it was like going fast, but it was also because I just like watched the clips out of order, and I was just like really hopeful like that morning to just like know whether or not if Lumity actually happened. And the fact that it did actually happen, it was just like a what the fuck moment. It's like, holy shit, this is like very surreal. Like, I can't believe that this is actually happening because Disney had never done something like this before. And the fact that it was actually happening, it was just, it just really opened like eyes to a lot of people about this show for like good reason, because this is like representation that like should be put out there. And the fact that it was like happening from Disney themselves with the help of Dana Terrace, it was just impactful. And I was all there for it. And I had even watched all the way to the season 1 finale. And even then, when I thought the season 1 finale wasn't as strong as Agony of a Witch, I was in love with this show. I loved this show. And I was just like really, really hopeful to just see that everything else would come to a satisfying conclusion. And then the news in May of 2021 came out about season 2 coming soon. Just blew up, and it made me very excited. But then also, so did the news of season 3 being canceled. And that really laid a setting factor on my enjoyment of the show from there, because that's when I realized things were going to be rushed, and things weren't always going to be explained, and all the stuff that I was hoping would be explained wasn't going to be explained or remembered. It was just all going to be forgotten because they don't have enough time. And when season 2A started to come out, I was enjoying a lot of the stuff that was happening. The fact that Luce and Amity started dating, and the fact that we were able to have a main LGBTQ relationship in a Disney show. Nonetheless, just in television history itself, the fact that we were able to get a main present LGBTQ relationship just meant a lot to so many people, and it helped so many people's lives that stuff was happening. And I remember just like being happy and just being cheerful for this moment just actually fully happening in this grand scheme of things. And when the episodes were also airing, even though I was like very happy, I was also a little angry because I knew that while this was happening, it also kind of had that sense of we're not going to be able to fully experience the true joy of everything else that the show wants to show. And I was just like angry at that, but I was doing my best to keep this love for the show alive. And I would even like go into online discussions with people who thought the show was like going downhill with season 2 and that season 2 was bad. And they almost convinced me, but I still like tried to fight back and everything. And then from there, it was just like laying dormant those thoughts of like, is season 2 actually bad? Is it actually terrible? Is it actually worse? Is season 1 better? Is season 2 just like actually terrible? And that's when I started to look. That's also when shows like Loki and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and all these different like pieces of media were like being released, and people were starting to have wars about it because did it make sense, or is it just woke, or is it all this different stuff? It was all affecting me. And it was just like really changing my input of things, and just like seeing how like people themselves would like be with a show or just like be online. And I would even have an experience online with Owl House fandom, basically, where things just went awry. like they want to strive. And I don't want to go into that because that really did hurt me, and uh, it really just set into me for a long time. And I thought I shouldn't be here. And it was just something that really just set along into my mind and everything. And it was just really bad. And things like that experience, and just seeing how, like, just like looking into how just things were going about online, and also just seeing how like people are reacting with shows, and also just looking at shows and like looking at things and seeing that there are like flaws or such like that. It just really started to set into me, like, probably the Owl House that I really like, the show that I really enjoy, is probably bad. And and then that's when I started to go into a sense of there's only one way of executing things. And I started to go into objectivity with media. I started to look at a YouTuber called Mahler, and his like expressions of objectivity and saying what was good and what was bad. And that was just a set course for me to just change my thoughts for a long while, and my perspective of media for a long, long while. And that affected the Owl House, where I looked back on the Owl House, like seasons 1 and 2, and that season 2 being like what was out for season 2. And that's when I realized that at the time I thought the show was pretty bad and it was pretty terrible. And I got into this like whole big like community thing where I was just like saying that, hey guys, this show is really bad. It really rushes things. It really does things badly. It gives bad messages. And I just realized that I was just not the best person then. And even when season 2B released, and just me being like very hypercritical on the series itself, I just really was not good with it, because I was bashing the show end to end, bit to bit. And by the time that season 2 had ended, I really thought this was like one of the worst shows I had ever seen. And it was just, looking at it now, I just want to slap myself and just like punch myself to just like actually listen to what I was fucking saying. And that's probably the first time you ever heard me like say that really in this public manner. But yeah, then what happened was that by the time that there was the hiatus of season 2 and season 3, this is where the small group of friends comes in. I met these group of people that were in agreement with me, or were open to see the agreements with me of saying that the Owl House was one of the worst shows ever made. And we went on for a long while looking at season 2, because the person had already seen season 1, and we were watching season 2 and ripping it apart and just going in on it in all these ways. And in this time too, I was also just like adapting their like views and like their just like different ideals and everything. And I was starting to agree with things that I don't agree with now. And now it's just, that was when I was starting to become pretty much a terrible person, I'd say, in my eye. The fact that I was agreeing with these things and just like going along with her, just even thinking like I was in agreement with it. And then in this same part too, I had with these group of friends, one of them, whose name I will not say, whose name I will never say, because he deserves to just be living his own life. He wants to move on from what happened, which I'll explain what happened. And I will not say the other person's name as well. Like these two people that I just really once had a close connection with, but I just don't have anymore. For the sake of it, I will use the names Edward and Matthew. Edward was someone who was very diligent in agreement with me of saying that the Owl House was bad, and that he was just like saying it would just be so cool if there were like different like ways of executing this, or if it was much more grittier and mature. And I agreed with Edward, and I was just like making up this idea at the time of making a rewrite of the show, one made in spite to say to Dana Terrace that, hey, you did this show wrong, we're going to do it better now. I was a fucking idiot then. And with Edward, we made a lot of storylines. We even wrote like a lot of episodes, and we were really doing things in our minds really well. And even Matthew was in support of that, and he was just like really in agreement with it. And like along the way, along like this entire like journey of just like making at least 2 full seasons worth of content, and then about 13 to 14 episodes, 11 to 12 episodes extra worth of content. Edward and I had a fallout, basically because we had major disagreements, and also because at that time I felt really superior, just like I felt very cynical, and in the sense that I was like making the right ideas, or that like anything that like Edward was thinking of was just not the right way to do it, and that it had to be like my right way. And that even though we were in a partnership, I will be honest in saying that I was trying to make sure that what I wanted to happen would happen mostly, and that he would get some stuff out of it. And even though that was definitely most of the time, there were also arguments with Edward too, and coming from Edward's end and everything. And it was just like, Edward, I'm not going to say how old he was, but he was definitely not middle school age. He was late high school, and I could tell that he was very reactive to things. And I'm not going to say that I was in the better. I'm still reactive to things, and I know that I need to do better. And that I blame myself mostly for how things ended up. And I was always trying to like say, no, it wasn't Edward, it was me. No, like I was not saying that at the time. I was saying it was Edward, not me. But at the end, about a few days ago, I was trying to apologize to him again, and I was trying to basically make him like not say all this stuff about himself and saying that it was me. And Matthew got really mad at it, and even told me to say, and even said to me, firstly, fuck you, Ran. Basically, I made a whole project with Edward. We had fights, mostly that I would say I wasn't just like fully in control of, or like we both weren't fully in control of. I would say I didn't like most of the damage, and he also did the other part. But really looking back at it, things just didn't work out as we wanted them to. And it was even just me having a change of heart of how I was thinking of the show, and just like what my thoughts were of the show, and even just like my thoughts on not only objectivity, but also on what I was agreeing with other people. Because Edward and Matthew had a very distinct way of seeing things. They believed in, like Matthew believed in religion, and like I did at the time too. And like so did Edward as well, but I slowly started to gear away from it on my own terms, because I saw how religion was really affecting a lot of people, and how really it's very stupid in like certain ways of just how they equalize everyone, yet they also discriminate other people. It's just stupid. And Edward went out of his way of religion on his own terms that I cannot fully express or say, because that's his own story. I'm not going to speak for his falling out of religion. Matthew, I know, is still the way he is. Like the way that I left him, he is the way he is. So yeah. But basically, Matthew and Edward, I'm going to come clean with it. They thought that LGBTQ people, or at least some portion of the LGBTQ community, were just complainers and just were living a fantasy and just didn't really care for them. They basically said, you can live your life, but don't expect me to respect your way of seeing things or your way of living things out, or trying to enforce this stuff onto children, because all you're doing is indoctrinating the children and everything and like that. And I can even say that Edward just said he didn't care for trans people or non-binary people, and that he thought it was a joke. And I'll be honest in saying that for a little while, I thought it was a joke too. And it was me just like agreeing with them. And just like, I was in this friend group that I felt like I was being like really loved in and like accepted in and everything. And I can't like say that that's like my excuse of things. Like, of course, me thinking those things is just like wrong looking back at it now. Anyone and everybody should just live their own fucking life. No one should fucking control it. So yeah, live your life the way you want to. You want to be trans? Be trans. And it's true, trans rights are human rights, because the fact that people have to fight or just have to like worry about these new legislations, these new things that are able to basically diminish your right or like way of existing, it's not right. It just simply is not right. And the fact that we are basically in a world that there are leaders who are just saying that we have to keep these people away from children or keep these people away from others, or else they're going to demonize you, or they have the Satan in them. It's just stupid. It really is just fucking stupid. And I just don't get why people believe this. And I don't understand what the fuck is up with Edward and Matthew even thinking this to this day. Because I left them. I left them, and I've gotten out of their reach and everything, but it's just fucking awful. But basically, the fact is that I once agreed with them, and I once partook things with them in the sense of that I shared like ideals with them, and just saying that, oh great, it's so great to just basically see these people and just say that, oh, like you're living a fantasy and all that. No, I just look back at myself now, and I just want to fucking bitch slap myself. Seriously. It's just awful. And with the Owl House rewrite, we were just trying to make things much more gritty, much more mature. And even at one point, I was even agreeing of just saying that, hey, like in the show that like we're doing here, like that's like, oh, this is like a PG show, like it's TV PG, not TV Y7, like, oh, you know, TV PG, we can allow more swearing and everything like that, or stuff like that. I was in the mindset of saying, hey, we can do some serious shit here. We can show like blood, or just like do all these different things, and even at one point show a dead carcass of a deer, and it was just all this different stuff. And I just look back at myself now, and I'm like, I'm just edgy as fuck. I was just edgy as fuck. But I think what made me realize that I didn't want to do the rewrite most of all, and also why, because what I did was that, like, Edward and I, because of our arguments and even of our issues with each other and such, I fired him from the project. And for a little while, I was just doing my own things. And then, like, because I was, like, having difficulty continuing the development of the project, he asked if he could take over. And I just gave him one more chance, and then I fired him again because there was more falling out happening again. And he got mad at me, and I just know that, yeah, I am not going to sugarcoat it. I definitely did hurt him. And in some aspect, he also did hurt me. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that I was not at fault for anything that happened in that development, and I don't want to hide it away. I would rather come clean and be truthful than not say anything at all. And it was also another reason that I just didn't want to do the rewrite, was because at one point we agreed that it was going to be 5 seasons, the rewrite, and that by the last 2 seasons it was going to be TV 14, which is the equivalent of PG 13. And because of this like whole like gritty atmosphere that we also like made from the beginning, or like we were trying to make and such, Edward thought of the idea of having a whole family genocide happen in one of the story arcs, basically meaning that there were going to be houses of families in this system of like high elves and everything. I like dark elves is what they were called. These species in the Boiling Isles on like a northern Titan, because we were gonna have more than one Titan. And in the northern Titan, these dark elves were much more cynical. They were much more darker, and they were much more negative and brooding. And they would even like be able to just like do very terrible things in the sense of greed or even selfish reasons. And that was the plan with them. And Edward wanted to have a scene in this Dark Elves arc that was happening during this whole big war thing and everything, to basically have one of the leaders of the resistance against Bellows, who is a Dark Elf, lead a whole genocide of families. It was going to be that houses of families were going to get killed, even children, because it was going to show the reality of war, and that it was going to show the realistic violence of things in the world. And I just remember seeing that, and I was just like thinking, whoa, we're going too far. We're going too far. And I just said, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And I will be honest in saying that for a long while. I was for a long while like saying, oh yeah, let's make it more gritty. Let's make it more mature, because Dan and Terrace couldn't do shit or anything like that. And it's just, I remember at that moment, there's a reason why certain things are chosen to be done and certain things aren't meant to be done. And the fact that Edward, I'm calling out to you, Edward, right now, that you wanted to kill children and families because you wanted to make it more gritty and show the vialistic, or just like more the terrifying nature of war, just to show to this audience that would probably have gotten it by now, and just try to drive this point straight forward with just the death of children through the genocidal acts of killing families. What the fuck, man? And I said this to him so many times by now, so this is just my final one. What the fuck? And yeah, I know, I agreed with it at the time, and I was like fine with it, like the nihilistic and very dark and gritty, mature nature of it all. But that was the point where I just like drew the line. And that's when things started to that's when things were starting to open up for me, that this isn't the right way to do certain things. And for a little while, like after I had fired Edward the second time, I just realized I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't do the rewrite anymore. And I just didn't like the feel that it had, the vision that it had, and the reason that it was made. It was to spite Dana Terrace, but the fact that Dana Terrace has helped so many people, the fact that she has done more to help lives, younger lives even, and the fact that I wanted to go against that because I was in spite of like these different things of saying and agreeing at that time that like I was in these ideals that just wasn't being brought up, or just it's hard to express this next part, because I just can't believe I was part of that. I can't believe I was like part of this like community, or just like the section of people in the world right now, and even in the US, that just basically are saying that you can't be doing this to kids because you're hurting them, or just you're changing them in the wrong ways or anything like that. You're giving bad messages to kids. And I was going along with that, and I was like being part of that group because of the whole objective crowd. Most of them were probably right-wing people, and I would even say that Edward and Matthew were probably most likely right-wing, even if they say that they support like LGBTQ people, because it's like stupid to like say, oh, why can't like a woman and a woman love each other? But then Matthew is also at the same time in his religion saying it's a sin. Like, I don't care if they do it. My cousin is gay. He's gonna be committing a sin, and God is telling me that's a sin, and I'm not gonna go with that. That's basically what he said to me once. And I know that both sides have their issues. I know that left and right have both have issues. No side is better than the other, I'd say, or just like I would say that like no side is purer than the other. because one side is obviously better than the other, personally speaking, but I'm not going into that. But I will go into this here. The big thing that impacted my change or made me love the show again, or just made me be able to basically change myself, and probably like one of the big reasons I just needed some time away from all this, it was because of an incident that I had. In my university, in last semester, in like the last few weeks, I was in a class with a few classmates of mine. I'm not going to say their names. I'm not going to make up names as well. I'm not going to do that to them. And I'm not going to say what class it was, but we were told to do an assignment, a conceptual piece. And one of my classmates in that group said, let's make a conceptual piece about how basically drag queens are being villainized, or basically are being seen as like bad people and bad inspiration to kids when really they aren't. And I will be honest in saying that with that assignment, I didn't do a lot, because not only was I afraid of just like interacting with political things and just like actually doing this for the first time, but because at the time I was agreeing with like the group and just like almost with certain right-wing stuff, because at the time I did agree that like LGBTQ people should like live freely. If a woman loves a woman, let the woman love the woman. If a man loves a man, let the man love the man. I had also just like dropped out of religion at that point too, so there was nothing religious like inspiring my thoughts on like certain things. But the fact that when I was saying that I was in the middle and I didn't choose a side is very false, because I know that within the group that I was in, that I was being inspired by right-wing stuff, and I was agreeing with that. And it was showcased there because I was not doing a lot, because it just didn't agree with what was happening there, with what was being said, or I just felt negative that I was going against my beliefs at that time with the people that I was with. And I didn't really do a lot. So when it came to the presentation date, first off, I arrived late. I didn't mean to, but I knew, like I had heard from earlier on from a teacher that things were going to start early. I was told this, and I knew in the back of my mind, and subconsciously I remembered it, but it never came up to mind to remind myself in the present moment. So I arrived late first. Second, that teammate who knew that I didn't really do much at all was just already mad that I just arrived late. And I was just like kind of standing there, not saying too much during the presentation. And then this is the big moment that changed everything for me. When my classmate was talking about how things were going on and with the world and everything, with how drag queens were being like misrepresented, and how I was just like uncomfortable to say anything because I didn't want to betray my friends or betray anything like that. There was a moment where the topic of the nightclub, The Pulse, was mentioned. And I will say that like at the time, I had already known what The Pulse was, but the fact that I wasn't paying attention and that I just really wasn't in the moment, I asked, what was The Pulse? And it was silent. And I looked over and I saw that classmate. She was hurt and she was about to start crying. And to give a little bit more context, that classmate was a bisexual person. And a few days earlier, she said that she read something online saying that her people were being labeled as demons. That bisexual people were seen as terrible to society. And that they are going through so much pain, the LGBTQ community, that so many young kids are going through so much,
that so many people who were afraid and in the closet had to go through so much. And that the fact that I had forgotten something so simple like the pulse, the fact that I forgot or just wasn't paying attention and just simply asked about an event that killed so many innocent lives, including LGBTQ members, I just felt terrible. And there was a massive wave of guilt among me, and the fact that at that moment that I just saw that one person cry, that one classmate cry, or just be upset. The fact that in that moment I really had forgotten or just really did undermine all the struggle that those people in that community have been through over the decades and years, especially recently. That's when it finally just opened my eyes that things have perspective, that things aren't necessarily one way, or that there isn't one way of living, or that there isn't one way of rules or morality. That was when I realized that everything has perspective, that there is so much more going on than just one thing that you're seeing, that there's always all these different things going on. And that was when I was realizing that what I was a part of, what I was agreeing with at that time was something that I just couldn't agree with anymore. I just couldn't be a person that was going to hurt others. Because I know one thing is for sure. When I was brought up into this world, my grandparents had gotten here from Cuba and Colombia to be able to make a living into this world, to bring children into a land that ensured possibility for them, that ensured the promise of better freedom than their past countries had promised, or better state of mind than their past countries had promised. My grandfather ran away from communism to be able to bring my dad into a world that was much better, much safer for them. And the fact that same country, that same world is just a big mess right now, and just forgetting all the promises and just putting all these different nihilistic and terrible things onto people right now who seek safety, who seek freedom of expressing oneself, who seek the freedom of just being who they are. The fact that is trying to be restricted, and the fact that I was agreeing with people who thought that I just couldn't do that anymore. And it really just started to affect my decision with those group of people, and I just left them. And then I left Edward and Matthew because I just saw that they were also being the same. And yeah. And on my own, I found better people. I found better people to hang out with, and I found myself in a better state because I realized I would rather like to spend the rest of my life wanting to support people in the way that they want to live, or basically help people have that freedom of just living the life that they want to. Just the fact that I wanted to not be those people who wanted to restrict things or say that people were complaining or that there is no problem here. There is a problem there. And I didn't want to be a group that said there wasn't anything going on. I didn't want to be part of that anymore. And when I started to realize that there were like these issues and everything going on within society, and also just going on within the sense of why it needs to be represented, why these values or like these ideals need to be presented to kids, like the idea of loving someone that is the same sex as you, or wanting to be in a different gender, or just wanting to express who you are and where you came from, all these different things. That's important. And I looked back at the L House with that like much more importance now, and it's come back to being a show that's one of my favorites and I just love. And it's just I just feel like more recently right now I need to do better and not be the person I was before. And for a long while I was someone that I just hated, that I just hate now. And I just am trying to go out in my way of being a better person now, of being someone that will be open for anyone and that anyone could talk to, or that anyone could trust, and knowing that they will support them. And it's just now I just feel like I just want to say this because I know that it's probably never going to be said, and it's probably a little bit silly, but I feel like it should be said. I'm sorry for all the people. I don't know if it should be just like that. I'm just sorry I'm sorry to the people that I've hurt. If you know who I am, if you've interacted with me online in that time, where I was like that, where I was just very cynical, very nihilistic, and just showing these ideals that just weren't right. If you interacted with me when I was like that back then, I'm sorry. I am so sorry that it has taken me this long to figure things out. Because, I'll be honest, it started in 2022. January 2022, where I was agreeing with stuff like that. And it ended not even a few weeks ago. Almost a year and a half. And I was doing that for a year and a half. And it took me that long to realize what I was doing was wrong. And I shouldn't have been in that state of mind. And that I'm sorry to Dana Terrace herself, because, like I said, I don't know if she'll ever see this. I don't know if the people that I'm talking about will ever see this. But I just want to say to Dana Terrace that I'm sorry that I saw you in any way negative, that I saw you in any way as terrible for people. I'm sorry that I saw you that way. And that I just hope that with how I'll be now that will never happen again, with not only just Dana Terrace or the Owl House, but just with any showrunner that just wants to do the right thing. I just hope that this never happens again, and that I can be able to just like make amends in like the best way possible, of just trying to show the love to the show that really helped me like recover myself and really changed me. Because without the Owl House, I want to be here. I want to have made art. I want to be an animator. Without the Owl House, I don't know what I would be. And even without that finale, I don't know. Because the finale really changed everything for me for the better, and I just feel terrible that it just took me so long to realize that. But at least I'm glad that I realize it now, and not too late. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's what's been happening. I've went through a whole journey by myself that I felt really needed to be by myself, where now I'm full lefty. I love the Owl House. it really has changed my life, and I hope it keeps on changing lives more. And I just know that I want to be better. I just know that I want to be better, and I aim to be better than the person I was. I'm glad that out of the experience that I had, that I learned what was right and what was wrong. That I was able to make good friends out of it along the way. And that I realize now what type of people I don't want to hang with anymore. I hope that Edward and Matthew, who, if you even see this, that you too live your best life. Because I don't wish anything bad against you. I am not that person either. But I just know I wish you'll be able to like see what I'm opening my eyes to and what many people are talking about, and that you guys change for the better in your own way, hopefully for the best way, and that things go well for the both of you. I hope that happens well. And to the others watching, I hope that you guys are satisfied with this update, even if it was very personal and very just very needed to be said. Like, just it was a very personal update, a very personal look onto my past self, a deep look on what needed to be said so I could be able to move on from it. I just hope you're able to see that that I am just trying to just like make those better changes for myself and for others. Because I know that a lot of people do cancel culture, and I know that a lot of people don't really believe in the idea of redemption or in the idea of change. So I just hope that the people watching are able to agree with that and are able to understand what I'm going through, because I'm still young. I'm not going to say my exact age, but I'm not even 30 yet. I'm not even 25 yet. I'm in college right now. I just went through my first year at college. Like, I'm learning still. Everything is just a learning process, and I'm just trying to be a better person than I was the day before and the day before then. So I just hope you guys realize that and are able to take this update with like what's happening now. So yeah. Anyways, aside from the personal and negative stuff that I felt like needed to be said, more recently, like I said, I've been back to saying I love the Owl House again. It's a very impactful show to me and to so many others. I have been doing art for it again on my Insta and on my Tumblr as well, and all these other things. I'll even put my socials into a link tree, probably in the description or in the about section of the channel. But yeah, I just more recently I've actually joined different projects. I am part of the Spectacular Spider-Man continuation project, which I am probably sure some bit of the internet knows about. And I am a part of that now. And I am working on that right now. I'm a storyboard artist on that. I need to get onto those storyboards sooner than later. It's been too long since I worked on anything for that project, so I need to get back to that very soon. Alongside that, I am also working on a Byeeeeee project. Yeah, a couple of fans are making a Byeeeeee episode, looking into the backstory of the Byeeeeee brothers and Evelyn Clawthorne and everything like that. So that's that happening too. I'm also in an MAP project, a major animation project with different groups of people. Nekoami's MAP on the Call of Paradise, I believe, is
what this song name is called. I'll look back on it again. I'll leave the link in the description below to like these different things so you could be able to look at them. And I'm trying to join the Owl House Revive project. The applications haven't opened up again. And also I'm just trying to join more projects while also opening my own webcomic that is in an anthology webcomic series of the Owl House, and like going into different perspectives of the show, different areas. So, for example, different areas being like the past, anything that was not shown before the show, like anything that was developed there. So, like Ida's past, probably Widowbane stuff there, like my own version of the Widowbane story, like the Collector's past, Belos's rise to power, that stuff. Present, it'll look into the present, so any moments that happened during the show that we were never able to see, that could be able to fill in any holes that were like missing or anything like that, or just would be very interesting to explore, and even like add on to the pacing or the development of certain aspects in the show. And then the future, which is basically looking into stories that happened during the time skip to the epilogue. So nothing past the epilogue. It would be everything that happened after the final shot of Luce holding String Bean in the present day. And it would just be like the beginning from there, like anything that happened after that point to before she started packing stuff for the University of Wild Magic. So you can look into that there. I'll probably even make a trailer for that series and everything that will probably air onto this channel and everything. It's only going to be on Webtoon though, so you'll have to look on it on there. But yeah, I am basically very busy and just trying to make different stories and just make contributions to the Owl House fandom that I wish I could have made. I wish I could have made long ago as a fan, but I am doing that now as an ultimate fan today because the show really means a lot to me, and I would rather want to show my love in as much as many projects as I physically and mentally can be able to work with, and just show that more with more appreciation for the Owl House, and even for more support and hopefulness to see the Owl House being continued, or even work within that realm of the Owl House and being able to work into the continuation of that. So yeah. Hopefully a plan that I have right now is to just do well on my portfolio that I need for college right now to get into my major, or one of the two majors that I'm looking into right now. Be able to succeed out of college and get like internships and like get into the animation business. Hopefully make a setting in the animation business, make a footing in the animation business. Be able to work on many things, and one of the goals is to probably work with Disney, because even though it is a corporation, I feel like a lot can be done with the help of a corporation, that things can be changed for the better, and hopefully be one of the main factors to bring back the Owl House to a mainstream audience and bring the continuation of the canon into reality. Hopefully I can be a part of that. Hopefully I could also make that happen. Just being able to work with Dana Terrace would be such a dream, and just honestly would just be something that I would really want to do, not only just as a dream, but also for myself to say that I did better by changing. But yeah. So there's a lot going on in the Owl House and such. Other stuff outside the Owl House that I'm trying to do. I am going to work on Lives Turn. I need to go back into development for Lives Turn and such. It's been too long since I've thought about Lives Turn or did anything for Lives Turned. So I'm going to go back into that. I did post a clip of a proof of concept that I want to make for Lives Turn, so that way the idea is at least out in the open, and that it would be made one day. So that's like something that I want to do right now. I want to develop a series Bible, so that way I can be able to have like a full concept of what I would want to make Lives Turned about, and be able to make that a reality. And then last but not least, I'm also trying to make Arid and Blast Productions a real prominent thing, trying to make my own personal projects and bring it out through Arid and Blast Productions, So that way I could start making like my own animations and my own stories and use that as a means of like not only bringing myself out into the industry, but also probably making my own animation studio or production later on. So that way more stories could be said through that production. Even one that I really want to do with a friend of mine, whose name I will say, their username, Noel, who is working on a series called Witch Deception. We both really have enjoyed Wizard 101, and we are thinking of making a fan web series for that show, for that game, and just showing that appreciation in that web series. So we'll see. We'll see what can be able to be made, what I can be able to do, but basically I am planning on doing stuff. I even plan on doing something with the Owl House as well that isn't project related with all the stuff that I said. So yeah, you're just going to have to be on the lookout, everybody. So yeah, there's a lot that I had to say. There's a lot that I wanted to let you in on that will probably develop and happen later on in the future. But yeah, this is the first update I have done ever, and probably maybe one of the only few that I ever have to do, hopefully, God willing. It's kind of interesting to say that I'm an atheist now. I don't know why I say that, but I guess it's a figure of speech or figure expression. I don't know. But yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's the end of the update. I hope everyone is doing well, and until next time, see you later. Bye.